The images of the Prime Minister and opposition leader fleeing in the face of an angry mob on Australia Day left many people shocked and angry. As shocking was the news that a member of Julia Gillard's own staff had a hand in sparking the confrontation. He resigned, but since the 26th of January, there have been many questions about who was responsible for stirring the anger of the Aboriginal Tent Embassy protesters. But the protesters shot their own video of the day, and tonight, for the first time, 7:30 can show how events got out of hand. It's new evidence now being evaluated by police.
Racist! You're racist!
The ugly scenes on Australia Day were beamed around the world.
We got some new video coming in of Australia's Prime Minister escaping an angry mob.
The nation's leaders dragged by security from the anger of a mob outraged by false claims. It got worse for the Prime Minister. The actions of one of her staffers had directly led to protesters from the Tent Embassy descending on the lobby restaurant.
Mr Hodges had already offered his resignation to my Chief of Staff. He offered his resignation to me and I accepted it because Mr Hodges' conduct was unauthorised and it was unacceptable.
And since then, the Coalition has pursued Julia Gillard for more detail of what went on that day.
Does the Prime Minister stand by her statement on January 28 that, and I quote, Mr Hodges was advised by the journalists at the lobby restaurant that Mr Abbott that morning had made a statement in relation to the Tent Embassy in Canberra?
Now, for the first time, 7:30 can show footage of the words that sparked the confrontation.
Want me to give you the detail? Yeah. They're both in a reception at the lobby restaurant, which is just up the corner, and Abbott's just made a statement to the press that the Tent Embassy should be pulled down. He's over there.
Our Deputy Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, is over there and he's just made a statement to the press that the Tent Embassy should be pulled down. Over there! Come and say it here, Tony Abbott!
Tell everybody to go over there.
I was asked to put this message across. Can everybody go over that way?
Let's go look for Tony.
Go look for Mr Abbott.
And Gillard.
And Gillard.
The woman at the microphone is Aboriginal activist Barbara Shaw. 7:30 has confirmed that the woman out of shot is the Secretary of Unions ACT, Kim Sattler. The man behind it all is here, Tony Hodges, former immediate advisor to the Prime Minister. But let's rewind to where it all began on the morning of the 26th of January, when Tony Abbott was asked a question about the Aboriginal Tent Embassy.
Look, I can understand why the Tent Embassy was established all those years ago. I think a lot has changed for the better since then. We had the historic apology just a few years ago, one of the genuine achievements of Kevin Rudd as Prime Minister. We had the proposal, which is currently for national consideration, to recognise Indigenous people in the Constitution. I think the Indigenous people of Australia can be very proud of the respect in which they are held by every Australian. And yes, I think a lot's changed since then, and I think it probably is time to move on from that.
Tony Abbott was scheduled to be in Canberra that afternoon to join the Prime Minister at an awards ceremony at the lobby restaurant. Julia Gillard says that before they arrived, Tony Hodges was told of Tony Abbott's Tent Embassy comments and decided they demanded a response. Kim Sattler has had a long association with the embassy.
Mr Hodges spoke to Ms Sattler by telephone. Ms Sattler was in attendance at the 40th anniversary events for the Tent Embassy. Mr Hodges accurately conveyed to her the statement made by Mr Abbott.
Kim Sattler has had several public positions on what happened next. She was first reported as having no part in the protest, then as saying she simply repeated what she'd been told by Tony Hodges. She recanted after a call from the Prime Minister's office. This is what Kim Sattler told Ross Solly on ABC Radio in Canberra yesterday.
It is incredibly important because if Mr Hodges told you that Tony Abbott had said that it's time to tear the Tent Embassy down, then...
At no point did I ever use those words, Ross, and this is exactly what the problem is.
Here again is what was said on the day.
And Abbott's just made a statement to the press that the Tent Embassy should be pulled down.
OK, but he didn't at any time tell you what that statement was?
He talked in vague terms about... He didn't give me a direct quote of what he said.
But in vague terms, what was he saying? In vague terms...
That Abbott was attacking the embassy, was saying that it shouldn't exist anymore, it should move on.
Should move on. That was the strongest he said, that he should move on?
That's right.
Kim Sattler declined to comment for this story because the police now have this new footage and she'll be interviewed about it.
No, it's all right. Put this spear away.
And it emerges that the phone call between Tony Hodges and Kim Sattler was not their only contact.
I had more than one phone conversation and more than one text conversation, and I'm not willing to go into that.
The text messages are now also in the hands of police. One of the Tent Embassy's founders blames the Prime Minister's office for what happened on Australia Day and believes it's vitally important that all of the threads are drawn together.
The fact is that somebody tried to gain political mileage here for maybe the Prime Minister or the Labor Party itself.
What do you say, though, Michael, to people who say, well, that's just excusing the actions of a mob? It was, that the police were clearly concerned about the safety of the Prime Minister.
Well, I think if you look at the footage very clearly, I think that they could have done it in a more, I suppose, diligent and dignified manner. I think the way in which they rushed out that door, nobody made a proper risk assessment of the situation, nor did any of the police come to try and talk with us and sort of say, okay, look, let's cool this down or let's sort of get some order here. They went into panic mode, and that's very clear and evident from the film.
7:30 has tried to make contact with Tony Hodges to get his version of events, but without success.